Well, guys, something rare happened yesterday morning, and that's some actual truth being spanned on the BBC. This, of course, wasn't the BBC's intention, but the NHS doctor and medical experts they got on the show managed to slide in some truth while talking about statins. This whole discussion here follows reports that the NHS are going to give out these statin drugs to people like Smarties. This is all in a bid to stop these strange increases in heart attacks that we've seen in recent times. Yeah, I know it's amazing that we never needed it before, but that's just a coincidence. Remember, they're following the science, and the cause is likely climate change, cold water, or racism.
Don't piss in my pocket and tell me it's raining.
Anyway, this medical professional, Dr. Asim Malhotra, went on the BBC and absolutely laid down facts while talking about something the NHS was doing. This, along with his calm and concise words, stopped the BBC act from shutting him down like her producers were probably screaming in her ear.
Well, I'm joined now by Dr. Asim Malhotra. He is a consultant cardiologist and specialises in statins. Thank you for joining us this morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Good morning. In terms of what NICE are saying, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I have a great respect for NICE, but I think in this regard with statins, I think this guidance is misguided. And the reason I say that, Lugwessa, is something I've managed thousands of people with heart disease in my career, prescribed statins, particularly to high-risk people. And I just want to emphasize that people who've had a heart attack or high risk, that's where we see the greatest benefits of statins. On top of that, Lugwessa, one of the reasons I think this has come into the news just now is obviously there's been a big concern recently around excess deaths. Now, the British Heart Foundation have said, certainly during the pandemic or since the pandemic, there's been 30,000 excess deaths specifically due to coronary artery disease. That's my area of expertise. And they're trying to figure out what's causing it. Chris Whitty recently suggested that it could be because people weren't prescribed statins or blood pressure pills. But Carl Hennigan, that unfortunately, I've got respect for Chris Whitty, but I think he's mistaken here because analysis I've done, and even Carl Hennigan, the director of Centre of Evidence-Based Medicine, Oxford, suggests that statin pills prescription hasn't reduced since the pandemic. So it's unlikely to be a cause. But what is almost certainly, and if you allow me to say this, Lugwessa, what my own research has found, and this is something that is probably a likely contributory factor, is that the COVID mRNA vaccines do carry a cardiovascular risk. And I've actually called for the suspension of this pending an inquiry because there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment about what's causing the excess deaths. Some of it will be ambulance delays. My own father, it was reported on BBC News in late 2021, I was the first to actually highlight the ambulance delays because my own father suffered a cardiac arrest at home and the ambulance took 30 minutes. And when his post-mortem came out, he had very severe coronary artery disease, which is unexplainable. I then published in a peer-reviewed journal. They accepted my findings that the likely cause of his death was 2 doses of the Pfizer mRNA vaccine he had 6 months earlier. So
can
I think there's lots of...
Sorry, I just want to jump in on that point. So what you're saying in terms of the mRNA link to cardiovascular risk is that is a proven, it's been proven medically, has it? Scientifically?
Yes, Lugwessa. So in medicine, in any research that we do, it's very difficult to always be absolutely conclusive. So we go on likelihoods. And there are lots of data now. The highest quality data is what we call randomized controlled trial evidence. So there was a reanalysis in the journal Vaccine published recently where they found that the original trials of Pfizer and Moderna with mRNA vaccines showed, and I just want to put this in absolute terms because we don't want to scare people unnecessarily, but the absolute risk of serious adverse events was at least 1 in 800.
Okay.
And a lot of those are cardiovascular. And then you were more likely in those trials to suffer a serious adverse event than to be hospitalized with COVID early on. And I think the vaccine has certainly helped people who are high risk, but now we should be reassured that Omicron and what's circulating is really no worse than the flu. And this is really time to pause the vaccine rollout and to really investigate this properly.
Okay. So I just want to clarify one point here, is using statins a cheaper, less resistant, but short-sighted approach to lowering the risk?
I think you've summed it up perfectly. So it doesn't mean statins don't have a role, but the absolute benefits are very marginal in low-risk people.
Okay.
And actually, therefore, I would say to patients, this is the benefit, but if you cut out ultra-processed foods, if you engage in regular activity, and we need to help people do that as well. The problem is, as you know, a lot of the issues driving the obesity epidemic are related to the food environment. We have a oversupply of cheap ultra-processed foods that are very heavily marketed.
Yeah, she had nothing for him, and being a consultant cardiologist, he's gonna know what he's talking about, and even mentioned peer-reviewed papers in his little bit. This did expose just how stupid the BBC News reporter is though, because she asked about a scientific link between jabs and cardiovascular risk. This she did despite a known side effect of them being myocarditis, which last I checked is a cardiovascular problem, is it not? You could, however, see the points in that video where producers were telling her to shut down what he was saying, but she failed miserably. In fact, I'm willing to say that he absolutely smashed it in that one. In fact, he did so well you couldn't even watch replays of the interview on BBC iPlayer because they didn't bother putting that BBC News show up on their website. This means that less people might see it, but the fact it was on BBC at 9:20 in the morning is something we don't usually see, so that is a good thing. Plus, he was also smart in what he said because he didn't say the jab 100% caused anything. He asked for them to pause it while people look, which should be uncontroversial and common sense if you bloody ask me. Hopefully, though, we'll see more people breaking into mainstream news and dropping some facts on people because, let's be honest, it's long overdue.